And welcome back to Sunday for Pokemon Team videos. In today's Pokemon Team video, we have now gone and rotated through the list. We're back to GRC, who had asked the question, what is Zabuza Momochi's from Naruto's Pokemon team? So Zabuza is a bit of an interesting character. He's the first major villain we get in the Naruto series. Even though he himself isn't really the bad guy, he's just a gun for hire, he is still like the primary face of an antagonist we think of when we think of like good Naruto villains. At least, and I took a drink, sorry if there was a pause there. At least in terms of, when we think original Naruto, the villains that come to mind, Zabuza's face is one of them. But Zabuza was a lot more complicated than that. He was villainous, but with intent. There was intent behind why he was so villainous. He wanted to take back his country from the Mizukage, who was basically doing a bloodline purge. He didn't agree with it. He tried a coup d'etat. It didn't work, so he said, one day I shall be back to this country and hold it in my hands, but many things must happen before then, and you will help me make them, and you will help make them happen, Haku. He was a character with a lot more depth, and he ultimately did care about Haku very much. Which is why, it was interesting to get that return of them in the 1,000-Year Blood War. There's a lot of facets to Zabuza. Now, does all of his personality come out in his team? No. Some of it's more of his abilities, because we have to look at the whole facet of the character. Personality, the way they handle themselves, weaponry, let's just get this out of the way right now. One of the Pokemon on his team is a Honedge. It's a fucking sword. He has a giant FL sword. I think anyone would be very surprised to know there wasn't a Honedge on his team. And because in the Pokemon world there are, variants on Pokemon species. Some Pokemon, for instance, are much larger than others and things along those lines. You could make a solid argument, say maybe he has an extra large Honedge or something like that. Maybe it's just a very it's a unique one out of the group or out of the species. So you can make that argument, absolutely. But yeah, a Honedge made 100% sense for his team. So anything beyond that, though, I did have to go a little bit more on. So yes, Honedge is an obvious one. But what's not so obvious is the fact that we have to remember his sword, we do learn, has an ability to it. All of the Seven Swordsman swords apparently do have abilities, and we do learn that Zabuza does as well. We just assumed it was just a big sword with a weird circle in there, but actually what it does is it feeds on the iron, absorbs the iron out of the blood of the victims that it cuts down, so it can regenerate. So, which is a very unique ability, actually. So I wanted a Pokemon not just to represent his sword, because Honedge was a given, but a Pokemon that also represented that ability. And I'm like, okay, feeding on iron, feeding on metal is one thing, but I'm like, I already did Meltan. Which video did I do? Oh, I did it for Iron Man. I did Meltan or Mel, and I'm like, and those guys don't really work for this analogy. So I'm like, is there any other Pokemon that feeds on metal? Specifically, could I find a Pokemon that feeds on iron? And sure enough, there is actually a Pokemon that does feed on iron. Now, Aeron is the Pokemon that actually is known because its name actually is iron. But Aeron actually does feed on iron. But I'm looking at like, Aeron that is like just too cutesy and small to really work on Zabuza's team. And Aggron, I'll be honest, doesn't fit in my mind. Like, Aggron doesn't work. So I cut out the middleman and put Lairon on the team. It's a lot more of an aggressive looking Pokemon. I've actually always loved maybe a too strong word, but I really always liked the Aeron, Lairon, Aggron line. Especially because in the original Ruby and Sapphire, you could get those guys early. As you wanted to wander in the dark for a little bit, in the caves, you could get that guy before the second gym. Now, don't get me wrong, it sucks against the second gym. A fighting steel type against the second gym, oh god, that's terrible. But no, you could, in the original Ruby and Sapphire, you could get these guys early. Now, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire corrected that problem because I think they realized, oh no, once this thing evolves, it actually gets pretty powerful. So they had to correct that a little bit. But I've always liked the design. It's kind of got like a dinosaur reptilian vibe while still clearly not being that. So I really do dig it a lot. Yeah, Lairon made sense because if everyone feeds on iron, Lairon must also. Like they're rock steel Pokemon, they must all feed on metal on some level. And I think it's the more appropriate one of the three. Aggron seems a little too, as the term would be, aggro for Zabuza. Not to say Zabuza isn't aggro himself, but it just seemed a bit too much. Like he never seemed that powerful of a character, but he was always a dangerous character, absolutely. So Ilera made sense, but I also needed a Pokemon, and this was a big one for me. Like this type of Pokemon had to be on the team, no doubt about it. Is there needed to be a Pokemon that represented Haku? There needed to be a Pokemon because that was his most predominant and important and impactful relationship. So, do we have a Haku Pokemon? Luckily, we actually do, because remember, Haku's actually does come from the Yuki clan, so it's Haku Yuki. And that is basically a knockoff of a Yukina? A Yuki, I don't know if Yuki, it's Yuki itself, but basically a ice spirit that lures people to their deaths in ice storms. A beautiful ice spirit, usually taking the form of a pretty lady, that lures men to their death. And Frostlast is our Yukina, I think it is, or Yuakina, something like that. Yukina. Frostlast is designed specifically after that. It is a feminine-esque looking ghost ice type Pokemon. It is designed. It even looks like It looks like it's wearing a kimono because it looks like it's got the sash around its neck. It is the perfect representation. I've always really liked Frostlast, actually. An ice ghost type I think it's actually our only ice ghost type. And now that I say it out loud, I believe it's our only ice ghost type. I've always wanted one, but because snow runts are so hard, you can't get a snow runt in Ruby and Sapphire until much later. I don't even know if you could find a Dawnstone. And then you got Gen 4, which is like, okay, how, again, really late in the game, there's no way to get these guys, not early, but there's no way to get these guys mid-game in the game. It sucks. But it's always been a really cool design Pokemon. Ice Ghost, like I said, is a very unique typing. And it is a perfect representation for Haku. So, there you go. But now we get into more the other aspects of Zabuza. One specific aspect is the fact that he was a master water user. I mean, he wasn't like on the second Okage level of mastery, but he was a skilled water elemental user, water ninjutsu user. Being from the mist, that makes a logical sense. Now, there is one facet about him that I'm like, when I was starting, I'm like, I could theoretically put any water type on his team, but I don't want to do that. I do want the water type I put on his team to make some sort of sense. And I was torn not to do this one because whenever I get around to doing a Kasame video, it would make more sense. But I'm like, okay, there is a catch with this. And I'll talk about that in just a second. And that is Sharpedo. And this really only stems from the fact that he's aggressive. He has the very sharp, shark-like teeth, which all the Seven Swordsmen seem to carry with them. But when you say Sharpedo, you're thinking, well, obviously Samahata, Kasame's sword, and his appearance, they're far more shark-like. True, but, and this is maybe a little spoiler for whenever I get around to doing a Kasame video. Kasame would probably have more of a Mega Sharpedo, because when you actually look at Mega Sharpedo, it does carry a bit more of a look to Samahata than, say, Standard Sharpedo does. But ultimately, yeah, Sharpedo, it's a water type. It's a dark type, which represents his more aggressive, evil, demon-esque personality. Remember, he is the demon of the Hidden Mist. And I do have another Pokemon on this team that does capture that essence as well, I think. So, and again, he has the shark-like teeth. So Sharpedo, while I'll admit was a bit of a stretch in some opinion, a little bit of my opinion, ultimately I felt worked. So the last two. First off, I thought Wishy Washy school form really worked because he used a lot of very powerful and large water jutsu, water dragon jutsu, water vortex jutsu, water prison jutsu, water clone jutsu, hidden mist jutsu. And I mean, when you look at this honestly looks like it could theoretically be its own jutsu, for God's sake. So to me, this is kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of those guys. A lot of those techniques. So Wishy Washy school form, and it's a very powerful Pokemon once it's in school form. So Wishy Washy school form, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. But finally, the last Pokemon that made it onto the team. Now this one, I'm like, okay, I need a Pokemon that's water, but I want another Pokemon that's kind of representative of the demon of the Hidden Mist, Zabuza, the demon, or Zabuza, the demon of the mist. You know, the name actually strikes fear. I'm like, okay, do I have any other water Pokemon on here that could really work? Because I wanted it to try to be water, because he is a water user. He's a he's a ninja of water. I'm like, but I only have 2 water Pokemon on the team. I'm like, okay, I need a 3rd water Pokemon. That I think that just needs to be fair. So okay, what's his last Pokemon? I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this, no, maybe that. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, that could work. And like, I guess it's about as close as I can get. And then I realized, oh wait, that has a Mega Evolution. Mega Gyarados. Mega Gyarados goes from a water flying to a water dark type. Again, dark in Japanese is the evil type. Dark translates to evil. And I mean, you look at that too. That is a very menacing looking Pokemon also. Like, that does, I mean, I wouldn't say so much demonic, but I wouldn't say not demonic. It's definitely a Pokemon that is, fearful, something you'd be afraid of, something you do not want to mess with. And that would be Zabuza, ultimately. I think it is the best I can do when it comes to the water Pokemon selection we have for a true representative of the demon of the hidden mist. Also, it would make sense, quite frankly, Water Dragon Jutsu, Gyarados does have a dragon-like appearance, that Gyarados could be the Water Dragon Jutsu representation, and then you just add on the demon of the hidden mist factor when, he's going full on, I'm going to kill all these guys with 1 kunai, no arms down, kunai in the mouth. Kind of, scenario where he's like it's like all or nothing, go Mega Gyarados. So I felt Mega Gyarados was the perfect final member of the team. So just to reiterate, we have Honedge to represent his sword, and again, in the Pokemon world, he could have an extra large Honedge. Why not? Because there was that Magikarp the size on the Magikarp submarine in the Orange Island series. You have Lairon to represent the iron eating ability of his sword. You have Frostlast to represent Haku on his team. You have Sharpedo and Wishy Wash to represent A, his shark-like teeth, but B, his array of water jutsu, along with Mega Gyarados to represent not just his water jutsu, but the demon of the hidden mist that he is known for. Or known as, I should say. So that is Zabuza Momochi's Pokemon team. Thanks for watching, though. Hope you enjoyed. What do you think his team was? Do you agree with this team, or do you disagree? Let me know what you think his team might be if you disagree. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Superior, Magic, What If, anything to do on the channel. Put that in the comments below as well. I'll get that at some point. If you want, again, Pokemon team videos, Magic videos, what is, who would win, the name it. I'll write it down and I'll get to it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I've got 3 other videos to do today, so keep your eyes up for those. Until then, thanks for watching. See you later.